Hi, welcome to the presentation on City of Verona water resources. Where does our water come from and where does it go? My name is Marty Cieslik, and I'm the construction manager for the City of Verona. This presentation was originally presented on November 10th, 2021, and it's part of a series of 4 presentations on water resources that have overlapping information and themes to give you a broader picture of some of the work that we're doing primarily in our stormwater utility. Today's presentation will go over some big picture information as background, and then we'll talk about the 3 water-related utilities that the City of Verona operates, those being the water supply utility, sanitary sewer utility, and the stormwater utility. Today's presentation will show the layout of each of the utilities, some typical construction of those utilities, talk a little bit about our newest stormwater facility, the Lincoln Street Stormwater facility, talk about ongoing issues and some rebate programs that allow citizens to participate and help manage our stormwater. In the big picture, we'll review the hydraulic cycle, how water is all connected. We'll show that Verona's in the Mississippi River watershed and how that's related. If you don't know, after you see these 2 little slides, you'll have an understanding of what a watershed is. We'll go through the water supply utility, the wastewater and treatment utility, and stormwater and surface water resources in the city. So start with a review of the hydraulic cycle. Water falls as rain onto the ground. Some of that runs off over land into the street, into the streams and lakes. Some of it percolates into the ground and flows in the ground to lower elevations, such as more major rivers and streams. Becomes surface water. That water evaporates when there's enough temperature, forms clouds. Under cool conditions, water condenses and forms rain. So that's your basic hydraulic cycle. This next diagram shows a little bit more human impact on that that water cycle. This diagram shows a well, some factories, homes, and the importance of this is showing that there are wells in the ground, that they're withdrawing that groundwater. Verona's water wells happen to penetrate much deeper than this diagram shows, down into what's called the bedrock aquifer. This is the Mississippi River watershed. It covers about 2/3, maybe half of the continental United States. Verona is in that watershed. We sit up here about where the cursor is on the screen, and our water goes to the Sugar River, which eventually goes into the Pecatonic on the Rock River, and the Rock River flows into the Mississippi River. So what a watershed is water, all the water that falls within this area ultimately drains to these branches of the river and into the Mississippi River. And the impact is that every spring, summer, and fall, there is a zone of water in the Gulf of Mexico called the hypoxic or dead zone. It's a zone where there's virtually no dissolved oxygen. That is a result of the fact that there's that much pollution that runs off of the land and concentrates in the Mississippi River in this part of the Gulf of Mexico. Our own little watershed is the Upper Sugar River watershed, roughly from Madison to Mount Horeb, and then south down to Belleville and up to a little bit of Cross Plains, about 175 square miles. Sugar River is the primary branch. We've got the Badger Mill Creek, which runs through the city of Verona, and the west branch of the Sugar River, which are major tributaries. These side maps show the watershed relative to the state of Wisconsin, the three watersheds being the upper in green, middle in red, and blue, lower in blue. These are the watersheds of the Sugar River. And you can see that flows down into Illinois. Our water supply, which is that water which you drink, cook, and shower with, comes from 6 municipal wells. We have 3 water towers with about 1.1 million gallons of storage, and there is a above ground reservoir at one of our wells out at the near the or encompassed by the Epic campus. Here are the locations on a couple of maps of our wells. Well 5 out at Epic campus, well 4 on Cross Country Road, well 3 off of 9 Mountain Road. Here's the remainder of our wells. Well number 1 is at Park and Schumann behind Miller's. Well 2 is off of Factory Lane near Carnes. And then well 6, our newest well, is out on Wayland Road, just east of the bypass, 18151. We have about 84 miles of pipe, over 900 fire hydrants, over 2,900 valves, 5,000 customers. We have the capacity to pump about 1.2 million gallons per day. Our pumping water usage range anywhere from about 600,000 during low demand days. Typically that would be a winter day, and as high as 2.2 million gallons per day. That would occur on those hot summer days when we've got a lot of lawn watering going on. We add chlorine to kill bacteria and manage in the water supply, and fluoride to the water at the wellheads. These are monitored on a daily basis to make sure we're not putting too much of that into the water. Our pumping capacity between all of the wells is about 6,600 gallons per minute. Here's a typical layout of water utility in a subdivision in the city. Our GIS system, we always show that water supply pipe in blue. The triangles represent fire hydrants, and valves are in X's on this map. Water main construction. Typically, water mains at least 7 feet into the ground, maybe a little deeper. If you're seeing metal pipe and you're seeing the contractors wrapping that in this white plastic, then you know that's water main construction going on. The pipe is bedded in limestone screenings, and then the trenches are backfilled, and then ultimately the surface is placed on. Occasionally you may see us blowing off water on a newly constructed water main. That's a process that we have to go through in order to put a water main into service. So that water main has to be loaded, it's chlorinated, we test that to make sure there's no bacteria on it. Then we flush out that chlorine that we put in to disinfect that line before we put that into service and before we do our pressure testing. Sanitary sewer, that's where your water goes when you flush the toilet or where the water goes down your sink. We're part of the Madison Metropolitan Sewerage District, MMSD, or MADMET for short. The city has 3 publicly operated lift stations, and there's 1 private lift station. And these lift stations serve to collect wastewater in areas where it can't be directly flowed into the sewer system by gravity. So that boosts that water up and runs in pipes that are called force mains. Otherwise, the sewerage flows generally by gravity to the wastewater treatment plant. Verona's sanitary sewer system has about 73 miles of pipe. We deliver about 330 million gallons of wastewater to MMSD per year. We have about 4,900 customers. And that's different than our water utility, where we have 5,000 customers, because some customers have more than one water meter on their water system going into their building. Typically, this would be for factories or for people that have a separate meter for the water they use to water their lawns. It's not typical to have that. As you can see, only 100 different between the sanitary and the water supply utilities. On our GIS system, we'll always show that sanitary sewer pipe in green. The convention largely because that's plastic pipe, and that pipe is usually a color of green. And we're part of the MMSD service area, and it is lift station 17 that delivers our water to the MMSD plant. So this is a bit of a dated map of the MMSD mainline system. So they serve many more areas than just Madison. Here we are in Verona. The Madison Met Treatment Plant is way over here, and I'll show you another map in just a minute. But these are just the main trunks. All of the cities have their own collection systems. So here is a map just to give you the sense of the where Verona is and where the MMSD treatment plant is. So the wastewater is pumped from lift station 17, located next to the Public Works Department and Parks Department on Bruce and Investment Court. Force Main pushes that to a sanitary system, and it sort of leapfrogs its way across the bottom of Madison to get to that plant over the Ninth Spring plant between Lake Monona and Lake Wabisa. Most of MMSD discharge goes down the Badfish Creek, but about 3 million gallons of discharge is actually returned to the Sugar River watershed near Verona to balance out the fact that the water was taken out of the watershed to put that back in. So that MMSD outfall along Military Ridge State Trail, I'll show you a couple of views to zoom in on that. If you get a chance someday to take a look at it, I encourage you to do that. So this is the Verona Road intersection with 18151. So this is the on-ramp going into Madison. The Military Ridge State Trail runs along that, and this small white dot right here is the sewerage outfall. So if you go on the bike trail towards Madison from Verona, and in particular from the Park and Ride, you will go past this structure. Under some conditions, you'll notice a little bit of a chlorine smell, and what's going on there is that chlorinated wastewater is being pumped out over this rock formation that helps to release that chlorine from the water and make it even more habitable for the aquatic life. Here's a bit of a zoomed in view of that. Again, here's that on-ramp. Here's 18151. Here's the Military Ridge State Trail. There's that rock formation. So you can take a look at that and know that that pumps up generally on average about 3 million gallons a day back into the Upper Sugar River watershed. Brief view of some sanitary sewer construction. This is a manhole construction going in. This our sewer system is always our deepest. It's typically at least 8 feet deep. What you're seeing here is a sewer line in to a manhole, and it happens to be a drop structure showing where that is connecting into a deeper downstream pipe that connects on the other side of this manhole. Sometimes we have to drill and blast rock, and that's what you're looking at right now, with a sanitary sewer manhole nearby. Our stormwater utility has about, switching gears, has about 58 miles of pipe. We've got about 60 detention basins, about 4,900 customers. We use a method of charging for our residential and commercial clients called equivalent runoff units. So basically all of our residential people are charged the same, and then our commercial industrial customers are charged based on some calculations that are done accordingly to the amount of runoff that they contribute. This is a typical view of our stormwater pipe system in the streets. And that's always offset, almost always offset to one side, opposite of the water main in the street. And we typically show that in orange on our GIS maps. And one of the things I want to specifically point out is that this piping system is not as continuous as our water main and our sanitary sewer system, because we are collecting water from curb and gutter, dumping that off into stormwater ponds. And so the pipe has got a different kind of connectivity of piping than either of the other two systems. Just to give you a feel for the other wastewater facilities in the Upper Sugar River watershed, here's that Madison Met sewer outfall, here's Mount Horeb, here's Belleville down to the south. Quick look at the spring at the park and ride lot in Verona, an interesting little piece of water resources to check out. So the park and ride is on the east end of town, near the intersection with the 18151. If you go south of that park and ride towards the Military Ridge State Trail, you'll see a pond, and in that pond there is actually a spring bubbling up through the groundwater, and then there was a structure put in that discharges that water out to the Badger Mill Creek. Check it out sometime just to see what a spring actually looks like or can look like. Somewhat different from our typical concept of something squirting out of the ground. This happens to be bubbling up from the bottom of that pond. Here's a closer view of that. That spring area is on the north end of the pond. The discharge is on the south end, and that water works its way underneath the Military Ridge State Trail into the Badger Mill Creek. Some typical storm sewer construction. City-owned sewer pipe, storm sewer pipe is always concrete pipe. So you see gray pipe going in the ground, you know that it's storm sewer pipe. It's typically our shallowest pipe in the ground, and it has the most variety of sizes of all of our utility pipes. Anywhere from the typical small end, 12-inch in diameter, all the way up into 6x6 box culvert sizes. And sometimes we have to pour the construction of the manholes for the storm sewers that connects the pipe. Here's a case where you see a smaller pipe coming in and a larger pipe going out. I'd like to talk a little bit about the Lincoln Street Stormwater Project that's just recently finished up. If you're watching this after the day of the original presentation, about $1.5 million worth of construction to manage stormwater in the central part of the city. It's a very highly engineered facility with two major components. In the foreground here, you're seeing what's called the bioretention area. In the background, what will become the wet pond in this photo. This is now complete, and you can go and walk around that facility. Here's an overview shot of the Lincoln Street facility with City Hall in the background, Festival Park in the middle of the photograph. You can see where we've established grass on parts of the slope, this dividing berm. Now water comes down the Lincoln Street channel, is diverted into this wet pond, and then when it overflows, there is a concrete structure here that helps mitigate velocities, and then it's slowly spread out onto the into the bioretention area, and then ultimately discharges at the southeast corner of the facility, down back into the channel and down into the Badger Mill Creek. Very, very interesting and impressive project to be a part of. Now I'm going to just quickly show you the construction drawing showing typical layout of utilities in our streets. So this is a relatively new subdivision, and you're looking at what's called a plan and profile sheet. So in this case, we've got the dash line on the top of the map, and that represents our water system with dash lines going into each of the lots, which is the water service. The sanitary sewer line runs down the middle of the street. It's the deepest one, and it is represented by the solid line. And then we've got solid lines coming back into the sewer line from each of the lots, and that's where the sewage gets in from the house to the primary sewer line. This bottom portion of the drawing is what's called the profile sheet, and it shows the layering of the pipes, although they're not right on top of each other, because obviously the plan shows them separated. Deepest being the sanitary, next deepest is your water main, and your shallowest is always your storm sewer. And on the profile sheet, it's the storm sewer is marked by this heavier dashed line to denote that the storm sewer flow. And in this case, water would flow along the curb into these two storm sewer inlets, and then down the sewer pipe that is in the ground. So that's very typical of what we might see in our street construction. Ongoing water resource issues. We have seem to be having problems with chloride levels, particularly increasing in the wastewater load. And part of the reason that increased chloride is water softening in the city, where we're basically adding salt to the water to take out some of the heavier minerals to make it easier on our plumbing, but there are some consequences for that. So we've on subsequent presentations, I talk about ways that individuals can help address that problem. Nutrient overload in our surface waters, that's what causes that dead zone in the Gulf of Mexico. Grease and oil clogging in our sewer pipes, ongoing issue. Pharmaceuticals being flushed down the toilet. Please, folks, pharmaceuticals do not belong in the wastewater stream. Plastics in the system, from a simple clogging perspective, and all the way to breaking down and becoming consumed and part of the environment. Let me go back one. And then carcinogens. PFAS is an example of carcinogens as an emerging contaminant. Please be a water conscious citizen. Consider installing a rain barrel. Consider installing a rain garden. keep your trash and yard waste out of the streets. Consider adjusting your water cycle, your water softener to cycle a little bit less. Typically, you're going to be adjusting at about or softening at about every 800 gallons per minute. If you move that up to about 900 gallons, MMSD would greatly appreciate it. Consider joining USRWA, that's the Upper Sugar River Watershed Association, which is a partner of the city, and they provide volunteer opportunities for learning about water resources issues and various conservation activities. They have an event coming up, a fundraiser on June 5th, 2022. That's a really nice way to participate and get to know the watershed, both on land and in the water. The city has rebate programs for rain barrels. We'll give rebates for up to 4 rain barrels. We have a 50% cost sharing program for native plants. We offer some mapping assistance. You can apply for these things online. If you go to the city website, put in either rain barrel rebate or rain garden rebate in the search box, you'll get to the appropriate forms. If you're interested in developing a rain garden on your property, use the rain barrel rebate request form to request a map of your property, and we'll utilize the city's access to high quality contour mapping of properties so that you can see where the low ends on your property are. A brief word on yard waste, leaf collection, and that sort of thing. A couple of links to websites that you can go to. Crux of the matter, or the crux of the issue, is the city does not collect yard waste. We do not go around and collect your grass clippings. We do, on a bi-weekly basis during the growing season, collect brush and the larger woody vegetation that you might trim from vegetation in your yards. In the fall, we collect leaves, and the city will go around weekly during that fall leaf collection period and continually attempt to continually be picking up leaves throughout the city as the opportunities allow. We're a little different from most communities in that we do ask you to put your leaves in the curb because of our method of collecting the leaves using our stacker. But we do not want you to put yard waste in the curb, and we will not collect that. We do have the drop off at the Public Works Department at Investment in Bruce. Please feel free to bring that over. Check out our hours online. We run extended hours during the growing season from about April through October, and we run a late evening on Mondays and Saturday collection. During the wintertime, we run just 7 to 3:30 operating hours for yard waste drop-off. With that, I'd just like to remind you of some follow-up presentations. This was the first part in a series of presentations on water resources that have these overlapping themes. The next 3 are scheduled for December 14th, called Stormwater Basics, January 18th, 2022, called Stormwater Quality. In that presentation, I'll be reviewing the stormwater monitoring that we've done over the past 2 years to summarize what we're doing with that information. And then finally, in February, I'll be talking about how we're doing some long-range planning and looking at where we would be prioritizing major maintenance projects, basically those stormwater pond cleanout projects as we go along. Because as you noted, we have nearly 60 stormwater basins to manage in the city of Verona. So with that, I'm going to end our presentation. Thank you very much for listening, and I hope you enjoyed this presentation. Have a great day.